Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new Nacon MGX. This is a wireless controller, and I've actually been waiting for this for a while. About a year ago, when Microsoft was ramping up xCloud, they actually had some renders of this same controller on their website, but it wasn't available at the time. I did a little bit of research and found out that it was made by Nacon. It's finally released to the public, but the price on this is a bit steep for what we're getting here. But we've seen this in the past, and we've also seen prices come way down. Just like the Razer Kishi started at $99, you can pick that up basically any day for around $60. Hopefully that's what we see here with this one, because when it comes to these Bluetooth telescopic controllers, I'm actually really digging the design of this one. We'll have to see how it performs, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure if it works with iOS, but by the end of this video, we will give it a try. So obviously inside of the box, you're going to get some manuals, your USB Type-C charging cable, and the MGX controller itself. This is licensed by Xbox for xCloud, and it works in X input mode, so any Android game that supports controllers natively, this thing's going to work with it no problem at all. Around back here, we do have these raised rubber grips, and the triggers here are linear or analog, but they're not without issues. Now, they do work really well, but they're a bit hard to press in. It's kind of hard to explain, and I'm not exactly sure how they have it set up in here, but it doesn't feel like this is on kind of a spring system like in a regular old Xbox controller. Personally, I love those triggers on the Xbox One controller. These feel more like you're pushing down on an elongated piece of rubber inside of there, and it's really hard to explain, but they are a bit hard to press all the way in to 100%. Straight off the bat, that would be the first thing I change with this controller. Now, like I mentioned, they do work. It just takes a lot more pressure than I'm used to with these triggers here. Now what I'm running here is Gamepad Tester just to show you that these are linear. We've got the right trigger and the left trigger. And here's a quick analog stick test. I'm not noticing any dead spots in here, and they're pretty accurate when you're playing a game. It's just really hard to control it taking a look at this screen here. But if you just need a little bit of movement in a game, it does work out really well. So yeah, I really do like the design of this controller. If you're used to using an Xbox controller, you're not going to have any issues picking something like this up. On the bottom here, we do have our Bluetooth pairing button. Moving over to the other side on the bottom here, we do have our USB Type-C port for charging the internal battery. Like I mentioned, we do have these raised rubber grips on the back, and it does feel really comfortable when you're using this. We've got 2 shoulder buttons and 2 trigger buttons, and the triggers are linear, so using this with racing games is going to make it really easy to just press that gas a little bit if you only need just a bit. We've got our Xbox button, analog stick over here, A, B, X, Y. We also have start. Moving over to the right hand side, we have our select button or menu button, another analog stick, and the D-pad. Now, I'm really interested to see how this D-pad performs. It does look a bit chunky to me when I compare it to other controllers on the market, but hopefully we do get some good performance out of it. Nacon claims that this will fit up to a 6.7-inch phone. I'm going to be using the Pixel 6 Pro in this, and we do have that large camera hump on the back, but it actually fits in here just fine because this is a telescopic controller, and you'll see in a second, once I pull it apart, we do have a little bit of a gap there, and that camera fits right in there. So we're not going to have any trouble fitting these new Pixel 6 phones in here. Now, one thing I kind of wish they did was slim up this bezel on the inside. As you can see, the Pixel 6 Pro just isn't wide enough to cover that up, so it is going to be exposed, but it's got a rubber grip on the back, and this thing's not going to go anywhere. It's definitely in here nice and snug. Now pairing it up to your Android device is super easy. You're going to hold that Xbox button, press the Bluetooth for about 3 seconds. We'll get a different kind of rapidly flashing LED there. Move over to our Android device, pair a new one, and it'll show right up. We'll pair it, and now we're good to go. And since this is working in X input mode, we can control our whole Android operating system just in case you want to install some type of custom launcher and you just use the controller to navigate everything. Now when it comes to using this controller with native Android games, 99.9% of the games that do support controllers are going to work with this, with the exception of one that I've tested so far, and that's Call of Duty Mobile. Unfortunately, the way they have that game set up, you can only use a PS4, PS5, or an Xbox One controller with that game. I'm guessing the game itself only has those proprietary drivers built in, but if you wanted to use a key mapper app, you could get it to work with anything you want. It's just really up to you. But at least for me, the only reason I would really buy a controller for my Android device would be for emulation, and I was a little worried about this D-pad at first, but here we have Marvel vs. Capcom 2, this is the Dreamcast version running with Redream, and as you can see, even though this pad looks a bit chunky, it does work great for these special moves. It's got a bit more spring back than an Xbox or a PlayStation controller, but personally I kinda like it here, and it does work out really well. And with all of the emulators I've tested so far, I haven't had to map the controller with the exception of one, and that's going to be the Dolphin emulator. I've gone through RetroArch, where you just saw Redream, I've tested MuPin64FZ, and here's PPSSPP. The only one I had to manually map it for was the Dolphin emulator for GameCube and Wii, but that's kind of a given, every controller needs to be mapped with this. But as soon as you get it set up, it's going to work great with this emulator here. And another one that I know you'd have to map it for would be Citra, the 3DS emulator. Both of these just require mapping every time you set up a new controller with it. And the final thing I wanted to test it out with here on this Android device was some Xbox game streaming. This is formerly known as xCloud, and we have Forza Horizon 5. Absolutely amazing game. I'm a big Forza fan, and I've been playing this for the last few days. Even in xCloud on this device here with this controller, it's totally playable in my opinion. Now another thing I wanted to test here was to see if this would work with iOS or an iPhone or iPad. I have my iPhone 13 Pro Max here. It does pair up, but unfortunately with the Apple Arcade games, it's just not going to work out. I've tested 4 other games and I've come to the conclusion that it's just not detecting it. Another thing I wanted to try was xCloud on the iPhone, and again, unfortunately, it's just not going to work out. So this is not iOS compatible, but I do want to be perfectly clear that it was not listed as iOS compatible on their website. So in the end, when it comes down to it, I personally love the design of this controller. I think it feels great in the hands. It's comfortable to me. I've seen some people online say that it wasn't comfortable. The analog stick and D-pad work out great with Android here. But the big downside are those triggers. They're just very awkward to push all the way down, and you know, I'm actually used to them now. I've had this controller for the past 4 days, but still, I don't like the feel of them. I kind of wish they would have just kept some kind of spring-loaded system with these triggers. Would have made it much, much better. And that's the big reason it's hard for me to recommend this, especially at that $99 price tag. Now, if this was coming in at $39.99, even with the triggers the way they are right now, I could recommend it to some people. As long as you know you could get used to something, then yeah, this would be a great controller at a $40 to $50 price tag. But at $99, I'd say that this is a no-go, seeing that we do have some really good USB Type-C controllers on the market for much cheaper. And one that comes to mind is the Razer Kishi. It's just one of my favorite controllers. We have very minimal input lag because it's using USB Type-C, and everything feels really great on that controller. But as for the Nacon MGX, with the triggers the way they are right now and that high price tag, I'd say skip this one until we can get something better down the road. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. I really appreciate you watching. I was really excited to test this one out ever since I saw the renders of it, but it was a bit disappointing. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.